Hey there, this is Andrew here to talk about the best house in Keyforge using the best mat in Keyforge, of course. So we're going to be talking about Mars in Winds of Exchange. Um, what do we expect with Mars? Well, one of the things that I would expect if I'm opening a Mars deck or sitting across from a Mars deck in Winds of Exchange is that it's going to have some interesting disruption focused around archiving my opponent's creatures. And yeah, there's a little bit of that in this set. There's also a lot of in-house synergy, some ready and use effects, or ready effects at least. And Mars really likes to have more Mars on the table, which is interesting and kind of fun. I think Mars in Winds of Exchange is actually pretty good for Mars. Not not Jenka level, but that's okay. That's not where we need to be. But it's really quite good. And Mars also has a yeah. Well, I said a lot of in-house synergy. There are just so many effects that care about how much Mars do you have on the board. Really want you to have a lot of Mars creatures. Okay, we should expect a little bit of damage dealing as well. And then, of course, the ever present sort of Mind Warper effect where your opponent's creatures capture amber from their own side. That's a really distinctive Mars thing. All right. And I call that slow steal, but Mind Warper effect I think would be another good name for it. My favorite. Let's see. Okay, so if I open up a Mars deck, what do I want along with it? It's a really good question because Mars actually really just wants more Mars. And so, what do you want? I think a little bit of ability to some efficiency is really helpful, and so some Equidon is probably a really nice thing. But it is tough because Mars really just likes to see more Mars. Okay, on the topic of uh, in-house combos, I think my favorite. Usually I go for 2-card combos, but I have a deck that does this really well. Uh, Scoop Up with what's his name? Memorox. With Memorox and Ironix Rebel, um, you can end up with in this situation where you're just putting a lot of stuff into your archives. Scoop Up is compared to like the old way of archiving your opponent's stuff like Zookeeper. Scoop Up is archiving your opponent's creature and your creature. So with Memorox's effect of action, get an amber for every creature or for every card in your archives, you're really ramping a ton of amber. And then Ironix Rebel getting to use it right away. It means you can kind of fire this combo in a single turn where you gain a bunch of amber, you've disrupted your opponent. It's pretty cool. And then let's see. Maverick. What would I want as a Maverick in Mars? Um, the ideal would be something that would boost our efficiency somewhat. Maybe blacksmith, because I think like having a nice if you have a Mars token and some of the Mars synergy with a blacksmith, it's just really good. And you don't necessarily need Equidon, a bunch of other Equidon cards in there. You could uh, put in other houses for synergy, uh, like, or not for synergy, but just to cover some of the bases, like a disruption in Equidon or something like that. Okay, I think that's pretty much it Mars is pretty fun in this set. All right, let's get into it. So big magnet. We're start. Wait, why are we starting in? Yeah, that is a rare. Okay, so big magnet is an action with an amber, and when you play it, you choose a friendly creature. You take control of each upgrade in play, and you move it to that creature. This is a really unique effect, moving upgrades around. It's kind of one-off. I think this is in the category one of the areas that Keyforge shines is rares that are weird and mostly just okay, but occasionally excellent. And Keyforge is really good at forcing these to be part of the game, because in a constructed format, in a situation where you're building a deck, you probably never include big magnet, because the kind of like Voltron style, or decks that revolve around putting a lot of upgrades on creatures, it's just not very common. I have a fun deck that can do it, that can build like a Voltron creature that has all the upgrades and is just super amazing, and you capture all the amber on it and it can never die. But realistically, it's just not a major factor in Keyforge. So you would never build with big magnet, but occasionally you're going to end up in a situation where a match, it wouldn't surprise me to see a Vault Tour where there's a high level match that gets decided because of big magnet, because uh, somebody had a deck that happened to have it, and it happened to be good in the matchup. So it's a fun card in that way. Not super game changing, but still pretty cool. Okay, next one. Okay, this is good to get out of the way early. Blorb Hive is an artifact and location, and Blorb Hive is the rare token card in Mars for Winds of Exchange. So when you get, where is it? When you get Blorb Hive, you will also get Blorb. And for some reason, my collector's set of cards has 2 Blorbs. That's pretty funny. So I guess it's kind of appropriate. They are both 167. 166, 168. It doesn't seem like I'm missing a card, so I guess I just got 2 Blorbs. Okay, so Blorb is a 1-power beast. It's elusive. It can't reap. When it's destroyed, you return it from. You return the Blorb Hive from your discard pile to your hand. And the Blorb Hive has Omni. It's an artifact with and location. It says Omni destroy a friendly creature. If you do, make 2 Blorbs. Then if you control 10 or more Blorbs, destroy Blorb Hive and forge a key at no cost. It's a really fun, weird effect. So it kind of turns your whole deck into this game around, can you print a lot of tokens such that you have Blorb Hive and 10 tokens, or Blorb Hive and 8 tokens rather, destroy a creature, make the 10th token, destroy Blorb Hive, and then you use a Blorb to bring back the Blorb Hive. It's amazing, and you can take 3 turns in a row to forge 3 keys for free, theoretically, assuming your opponent doesn't have any kind of board wipe. It's pretty silly. It's really silly, actually. And I honestly have to say I don't think it's good, but it's really fun, and I'm glad it exists. And I, trying to win a game with a Blorb Hive deck is really fun. So if the goal of Keyforge is to be fun and not to be, this ultra competitive thing, then I think it's great. And I do think Keyforge can be ultra competitive, but it's really nice to have this space of cards that are just really fun and weird, and you're kind of trying to figure out, how do I win with a Blorb Hive? So, and actually, I'll just point out, I really miss. I have a version of the tracker up, but it does not do some of the things the old tracker did, and I really miss the old tracker, because there was the achievements that it tracked and things like that, and so Um, so as a player, you could try to get, oh yeah, I won a game with, you know, a key from Blurb Hive. So there were those kinds of things that happened. Um, and I do think having kind of a mental checklist of those things can be really fun for Keyforge. Okay, moving on. Borka Rick, 4-power Martian Ironics. Ironics is a trait that shows up a lot in this set, so so this makes sense. Each time a Mars card is discarded from your hand, make a token creature. That's pretty interesting. I haven't ever seen this be really important. Compod. This is back from, I think, Coda. Yeah, it's an artifact and it's an item. It has action reveal any number of Mars cards from your hand. For each card revealed this way, you may ready a Mars creature. It's a pretty cool effect, and I could see it being powerful in certain circumstances. But I think Ironic's Rebel really steals the show here. So I haven't seen anybody really clamoring for a Compod, even though it is a good card. Then we have Destructive Analysis. It's an action with an amber. It says play, deal 2 damage to a creature. You may purge any number of cards from your archives. Deal an additional 2 damage to the same creature for each card purged this way. I think this is kind of a boring card, to be honest with you. Dealing damage is great. If this could purge your your opponent's cards from your archive, this would be amazing. This would be really cool and an interesting combo. And yeah, I don't know. I guess most people, part of the problem, the reason that would be a bad idea is that people mostly don't have ways to interact with your archives. But most of the time it's tough because you want to put stuff in your archives that you want for later to win the game, and so you don't want to purge it. So this card ends up kind of being really to get an amber, deal 2 damage, which isn't terrible. That's half a Twin Bolt Emission. It's just not amazing. Okay, Extinction is an action when you play it. Again, you can hand cards back to your opponent to get extra value. It's just iffy. Extinction is an action when you play it. You destroy a creature, and each creature that shares a trait with it gain 1 chain. The interesting thing here is you could target a creature that has multiple traits, and then something's like a robot specter, for example, you destroy all robots and all specters. So it can be really interesting. Again, most of the time, I don't see this as a critical card, because it's so matchup dependent. If your deck has a lot of Mars and humans, and you're facing a Dis deck, well, sorry, this just does nothing for you. So I think it's oddly specific and rarely will matter too much. I guess that's not totally true. You can hit your opponent's creatures. So, yeah, maybe it is better if you don't share traits. I've just never seen it being super good. Okay, Feeding Pit is an artifact with an location. It's an action when it says destroy, sorry, not destroy, but discard a creature from your hand, and if you do, gain 1 amber. This factors into that sort of like Mars likes itself. It wants to discard everything else. So your non-Mars stuff, get rid of it. Who cares? Get an amber. Kind of fun thematically. And if you have multiple creatures, discarding the worst one is pretty solid. Okay, Grondel is a 9-power beast with 2 armor. It says at the start of your turn, destroy the least powerful creature, and when you play it, you make 2 tokens. So I've seen this be pretty interesting. It's nice to have a big creature. It's nice to make tokens. If you have grunts, or if you have some like big token, like I played against a deck that had this with Bellatorian Warrior, that was pretty good because you're making 2 5-power tokens. That's brutal. But most of the time, I think this effect is actually just a little boring. So it depends on your token, but it's not necessarily good. Although having a 9-power 2 armor creature is good. Okay, Hypnotic Command is back. Has there ever been a Mars that didn't have Hypnotic Command? I'm not sure, but it's a good card. So Hypnotic Command says, for each friendly Mars creature, choose an enemy creature to capture one from its own side. And if you can spam some Mars creatures, it's just so good. It's super good if you have a Mars token, and this factors into. I think Mars is number one on the list of houses where if I see Mars, I'm thinking it's probably better if I have a Mars token. Brobnar, there's a little bit of that, but you can imagine, in like a Coda deck, Hypnotic Command can be good, but in a WoE deck, you could have 12 Mars tokens and still play this. So it can be really good. And oddly, well, we'll come back to the tokens later. I think Grunt is a really nice token because of the survivability, and with cards like Hypnotic Command, you just want creatures to be survivable. Okay, Incubation Chamber is an artifact and location. It has Omni. You may reveal a Mars creature from your hand if you do archive it. It's sort of some synergy, or not synergy, but efficiency. I've just almost never had it be good. It's so good, like in my mind, has so much potential, and then in practice, I just feel like you get one hit. Okay. Martian Revolution is an action with an amber. When you play it, you destroy each friendly creature, and for each creature destroyed this way, you make a token creature. That's kind of interesting. And again, who cares about all your existing creatures? We just want tokens, which I think assumes are Mars, but maybe they're not. Martians make bad allies is an action with an amber. Reveal your hand. Purge each revealed non-Mars creature and gain 1 amber for each card revealed this way. Again, more like Mars just loves itself and hates everybody else. Space Nazis, I think they've been called. Okay, so Nautilexian is a 6-power robot with 4 armor. It can't be used unless you have used 1 or more friendly Mars creatures this turn. And each friendly pilot creature can't be dealt damage or destroyed. So 6 power, 6 armor is already pretty good. Okay, so it comes with these 4 aeronauts. And it's a cool thing, right? Like it's kind of like the Power Rangers. That's kind of a fun thing. You have the green, purple, red, and white aeronaut. Green, they're all 3-power Martian pilots. The green one has action. A friendly Nautilexian gains splash attack 3 for the remainder of the turn. The purple one says after 4 friendly pilot creatures are used in the same turn, a friendly Nautilexian gains after fight destroy each enemy creature for the remainder of the turn. Red one says search your deck and discard pile 4 a Nautilexian and put it into play, then shuffle your deck. And action, a friendly Nautilexian gets +5 power for the remainder of the turn. And the white aeronaut has action, ward and fully heal a friendly Nautilexian. So they're kind of all organized around, they use their abilities to make the Nautilexian super strong. And in the end of the day, if you have all 5 of these cards on the board, you get a board wipe. A one-sided board wipe, to be fair. And the purple aeronaut can reap, I guess, and still get that ability. To me, it's just it's kind of bad. It's cool. It's a cool idea, but I think it's kind of bad. Okay, moving on. Felix the Disintegrator, still really good. It's a 1-power soldier Martian with elusive. Obviously, the fact that it's 1 power is rough, but it has action. Your opponent loses 1 amber for each other friendly Mars creature. By the way, I was thinking about this. 1 power creatures got so much worse with with mass mutation and really the advent of enhancements, because before that, there were cards like Poke, Whistling Darts. There were cards that would spray damage, but outside of that, your opponent has to like fight into this thing to kill it. And even a card like Positron Bolt, for example, like, oh, it's tough to hit it. Twin Bolt Emission, like, it's a little too much, so it's wasted, but I mean, you'd kill it. Anyway, I just think, but when single pip damage came out, these 1-power elusives just really lost a lot of steam. Okay, horrible card. Sorry. Oof. Quickslicks Plague Master. I just don't care. It's a 3-power Martian scientist with after fight, after reap, deal 3 damage to each human creature. It ignores armor. Who cares? Okay. Our evolution is an upgrade with an amber, and it says this creature and each creature with the same name as it gains after reap, deal 2 to an enemy creature. So this really wants you to have a Mars token. I mean, you could put it on a token in another house, but then your opponent has a turn to react. If you have a bunch of Mars tokens, this becomes, wow, really strong. I've never seen it do big work. Replay Pod is super cool. And again, this is one that really wants you to have a Mars token. So it's an artifact, it's an item, and it says each friendly Mars creature gets destroyed. Place this creature face down under Replay Pod. So as your Mars creatures are getting destroyed, including Mars tokens, they go face down, and then you can action it to put them all into your hand, and then you purge the Replay Pod. It's very good. It's very good to be able to do that. Spamming a lot of tokens and then being able to just be like, I have a huge hand now, is really good. Revo Hooligans is a 4-power Martian Ironics with elusive. It says after we put a paint counter on an artifact, while that artifact has a paint counter, it belongs to House Mars. Oh, what in the world were they even thinking with this? It's kind of boring and complicated at the same time. It's not good. Swap Widget's a fun one. It's an artifact, an item. It has action, return a friendly Mars creature to your hand. If you do, put a Mars creature with a different name from your hand into play, then ready it. Historically, this card was just kind of okay, and really, really shined if you had like a, for example, if you had a, boring Mars card on the board and an interesting one in your hand. Nowadays in WoW, like, you can do some extra interesting things, like return a token to your hand where you actually want the card, and put out something interesting, or return a ready Ironics Rebel to your hand and ready something else. So I think Swap Widget actually is much better in this set. I haven't seen it do good work, but I do think it has much higher potential in WoW than in previous sets. Okay. Total Recall is an action with an amber that says for each friendly Mars creature gain an amber, and then return each friendly creature to your hand. Yeah, it can be interesting if you have a lot of good play effects, especially. And I think, also if you have a Mars token, this essentially becomes draw all those cards. So again, I think probably more interesting opportunities here, but only if you have a Mars token. And really, realistically, ideally if you have Grunt, because Grunt actually will just stick around. Okay. Ixlix Stim Rager is a 4-power, 2-armor soldier Martian, back from AOA and still boring. It has after fight, deal 2 damage to a creature and move it to either flank of its controller's battle line. Airlock is an artifact and location. It has action, discard a non-Mars card from your hand. If you do, draw a card. We're into Uncommons now, by the way. This is interesting. It's fine. It's fine. It's not amazing, but it's fine. Crystal Hive, a huge combo enabler if things work out. It's an artifact and location, and it has action for the remainder of the turn. Gain an amber after a creature reaps. So it turns your reaps into double reaps. Again, with a Mars token, this can be just insane. Requires you to have ready creatures, but I think again, if you have Mars tokens, if you have grunts, probably you keep some ready Mars tokens around. So, pretty cool card. Destroy them all is an artifact. Is an action, and it says destroy an artifact, a creature, and an upgrade. This is really a great card that is back from AOA. I love it. I really love this card, and I'm glad to have it back. Okay, Ether Spider also back. Love it. It's a 7-power beast. It deals no damage when it fights, but each amber that would be added to your opponent's pool is captured to Ether Spider instead. And it's so game breaking as an uncommon. It's just really fun. It puts a problem on the board that your opponent has to respond to, but there are ways to respond to it. You know, it's not an insurmountable problem, but still you're really making a puzzle for your opponent. So I love it. Exterminate is an action. When you play it, for each friendly Mars creature, you destroy a non-Mars creature with lower power. This could include your own creatures. Hopefully you can use it to destroy your opponents. Again, I've never had this end up very good because Mars creatures are, on average, not that high. So I struggle with the value a little bit. Importantly, you get to decide the order of resolution. So there are circumstances where the order of resolution would matter for whether you have to destroy your own creature or not, and you do have control over that. Ironic's Banner is an artifact, an item. It gives each friendly Ironic's creature +1 power and armor. Again, Ironic's comes up a lot, so that's probably good. And when you play it, you make a token creature. Again, this just wants you to have Mars tokens. Here's Memrox the Red, a 5-power Martian, who says your opponent's cards cannot leave your archives. That's amazing because what it means is that if you're doing things like Scoop Up, you can pull your cards out of your archives without giving the opponent back their cards. And then Memrox has action, gain 1 for each card in your archives, which is a really nice effect. And probably what's happening with Scoop Ups is you're stocking your archives with your opponent's cards and then like 1 house of your cards, which is not Mars. And so then with if you go back into Mars, you're not going to want to take archives, and you can really get huge value from Memrox. But even if you then take a turn where you take your cards from archives, you're leaving your opponents. It's just a really cool effect. Okay, Mothership Support is an action with an amber, and for each friendly ready Mars creature, you deal 2 damage to a creature. It's pretty good if you have like Ironic's Rebels, or just again, you have a lot of Mars tokens. Probably some of them are sitting there ready. Nyan Outpost is an artifact and location. This is one of the few outposts that does not have an amber pip on it, and it's the only one that references tokens. So this one, you put a friendly creature on the bottom of its owner's deck. If you do, you make 2 tokens. So the other outposts could really all come back theoretically, but Nyan Outposts can only be available if there are tokens. Okay, Nizek Resonator is a 2-power soldier and Martian with 1 armor, and for each neighbor it has, your opponent's keys cost +2. Nice key cost boosting effect. Psychic Network, again, so good if you have Mars token. It's an action that says play steal 1 amber for each friendly ready Mars creature. Potentially amazing, but really would like you to have a Mars token. Red Planet Raygun also benefits from that. It's an upgrade with an amber that gives a creature after Reap. Choose a creature, deal 1 damage to that creature for each Mars creature in play. Space Invaders is an action that says reveal any number of creatures from your hand. Put each creature revealed this way into play face down as a token creature. This can be really nice. At worst, it's like slightly better than discarding. And at best, you're setting up cool, interesting combos. Suspended Animation is an action. When you play it, you put a damaged enemy creature into your archives. And it's the standard Mars stuff. If it leaves your archives, you put it into its owner's hand instead. And this enhances with 2 damage, so you probably are able to hit it. I found this to be a little underwhelming. I'd much rather have a scoop up. Okay, Ixal the Iron Captain is a 4-power Ironyx with 1 armor. When you play it, each friendly Ironyx creature captures 2. That can be quite strong, again, because Ironyx is fairly common. Zizok is a 3-power Martian soldier, and I feel like Zizok, I see him less often than I would expect for an uncommon, but he's a cool card. So he has Skirmish and Splash Attack 1, and if you destroy something with the Splash Attack, then you ready him. It's kind of a cool effect. And you can rule of 6 on that, potentially, if your opponent's board has a lot of, especially if they have a lot of 1-power creatures. Ammonia Clouds, 3 damage to each creature. That's pretty brutal. Brain Dart is an action with an amber that says enrage an enemy creature. It captures 1 amber from its own side. This looks like kind of an oversized Niffle-Ape. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. But yeah, so this is like a quick version of making your opponent steal onto their own creature. We're into the commons now. We started on, I guess Ammonia Clouds was the first common. Clone Home, this is the can archive itself token maker for Mars. It's an action. When you play it, you make a token creature. If there are more friendly creatures than enemy creatures, you archive Clone Home. And that's often actually pretty easy to attain if you have like a, again, Grunt makes it somewhat easy because they're actually beefy. Genetic Blast is an action with an amber. When you play it, you deal 2 damage to a creature and each other creature with the same name as that creature. It's very strong anti-token tech, and you can see these blorbs taking damage here. Glylix Weaponsmith is a 4-power Martian artisan with 1 armor. It's the Mars common 3 enhance creature, so it enhances with 2 damage and a draw. Not my favorite, which is kind of a little made up with the creature being a little beefier, but honestly, I could just take it or leave it. Okay, Ironyx Propaganda is an upgrade with an amber that gives a creature after fight or reap, make a token creature. That's pretty interesting or nice. Ironyx Rebel, this is a really nice card. It's a 2-power Martian Ironyx with deploy and play ready each of Ironyx Rebel's Mars neighbors. So whatever Mars shenanigans you have going on, this can enable it well. Now, honestly, the only creature that we've seen that I think is like, I guess there are a couple creatures that are really worth enabling this way are like Zizok, Memrox, maybe Felix, but I think that's really it. So it suffers a little bit from there not being amazing targets for Ironyx Rebel, but usually, certainly in a good deck, you can find a good target. Ironyx Vatminder is a 3-power Martian Ironyx with 1 armor. When you play it or it's destroyed, it makes a token creature. Very nice. Kaboom. Okay, this is an interesting one, and sometimes this just enables really frustrating combos. So Kaboom is an action that says put each Mars creature into its owner's archives, destroy each creature, gain 3 chains. I personally do not have a deck that I feel uses this really well. Maybe I do and I just haven't spotted it, but I can't think of one. But I've played against more than one deck that use multiple kabooms to just keep wiping the board and get really like good play effects. Like they'll have Ironics Rebels, and it ends up just being very frustrating where they're getting several turns in a row of huge value while I can't get a good foothold on the board. So I think this is a pretty strong card actually. Okay, Mars Needs Amber, back from AOA. It's an action with an Amber that says play each damaged enemy non-Mars creature. Each damaged enemy non-Mars creature captures one from its own side. That can be absolutely insane. So yeah, it can be a really amazingly good card. Mark II Generator is an artifact and item. It enters play ready, and it has action make a token. That's fine. Depends on your token. Mix the Tall-Minded is a 5-power Martian who makes keys cost +1 for your opponent only for each friendly Mars creature in play. This is a pretty good card. I love it. And again, obviously better if you have a Mars token, but can be quite good either way. As long as you have a couple other Mars creatures, you're imposing a nice little cost. Scoop Up. Okay, this is a great one, and really, Scoop Up is, I think, one of the, along with Ironics Rebel, they're the backbones of the Mars and WoW, I think. So Scoop Up is an action with an Amber. When you play it, you put a friendly non-Mars creature and an enemy non-Mars creature into your archives. And if that enemy creature would leave your archives, you return it to its owner's hand instead. Standard Mars stuff. It's just a really nice card. Good, solid board control. Tixel Beambuckler is a 4-power soldier and Martian with 1 armor. When you play it, you deal 2 damage to a creature and move it to either flank of its controller's battle line. Back from AOA. I like Beambuckler. It's fine. Interesting, Beambuckler's 4-power, 1 armor, and deals 2 damage and moves to a flank. Whereas, where is it? Glylix Weaponsmith, same stats, 4-power, 1 armor, 2 damage, 1 draw, and I feel way more happy about Tixel Beambuckler. So I don't know what's wrong with me, but I definitely see this as a more exciting card. Okay, Xanthix Harvester is a 3-power beast. It can't be used while it has a non-Mars neighbor, and after it reaps, it gains an extra amber. It's a really nice ability. Strong. If you get it with Ironics Rebel, that's amazing. Does not have like a Martian Gen key abduction to enable, so that's a little bit of a detriment, but it is a good card still. Then we have Ixlix Mesmerist, who's a 5-power Martian. With action, a creature captures 1 from its own side. That's like standard Mars stuff. So think about this, right? Mother is 5, daughter is 2, but elusive. Their effect is the same. Mesmerist is 5, Mind Warper is 2, but elusive, and their effects are the same. So I think it's about right. All right, and lastly, we have the 3 non-rare tokens. Remember, we saw Blorb already. Grunt is a 3-power Martian soldier, and that's it. And Grunt, again, I think with the synergy that you get in Mars, Grunt can just be really good because he's more survivable than these other creatures. Because, we already saw Blorb is 1 power, so is Rebel is also 1 power. A 1-power Martian Ironics with after reap deal 1 damage to a creature. And then Researcher is a 1-power Martian scientist with Omni reveal a Mars card from your hand and archive it. Researcher, I think, is a really fun card, but it just doesn't have that survivability of Grunt. So ultimately, to be a good combo enabler in Mars, I think Grunt is your best option for a token. But anyway, that was Mars and Winds of Exchange. It's pretty good. Like, I actually think if you get the right cards, your Memrock, Scoop Up, Ironix Rebel, stuff like that. It's actually can be really good. It does feel to me like there are a lot of dead-ish cards that I'm just not excited about, but when you get the right setup, I think it's actually quite good. Anyway, yeah, so that was Mars and Winds of Exchange. Hope you enjoyed. That was helpful. Maybe give you some new thoughts about how to use your WODEX. And I hope that you'll get out there and forge some keys.